your trusted local news source, KCRG TV9.
Hello and welcome back to your trusted local podcast. I am Becky Phelps.
I'm Beth Malicki. Hello.
Yes.
I feel like I haven't been here in ages. I was off for a few days.
Yes.
So Becky knows all the news and I know nothing.
Well, that's an exaggeration, but we are going to do a fun little catch me up.
Oh yeah,
for
please.
Beth and for you, most likely, to give everybody an idea of some of our top stories going on this week.
Wonderful.
We're going to start with something that we have touched on in some previous podcasts. Okay. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds has approved and not approved a couple bills this week.
Okay.
So Governor Reynolds did approve, she signed into law, Senate File 383. That's the PBM, Pharmacy Benefit Managers Bill.
Okay, the Pharmacy Benefit Managers, if I may, I was in Missouri for a number of days this week. They are running commercials in support of pharmacy benefit managers. And I have never seen anything like that in Iowa. On the radio, I saw numerous ones, it's actually the same one, running over and over again on TV stations, like the local ABC affiliate in St. Louis. So the pharmacy benefit manager conversation is so much bigger, obviously, than Iowa. And I didn't have a chance to look into if Missouri is looking at doing some legislative interventions like Iowa did. But this took a while for the governor to sign.
It did, yes. So what it does, can you explain, first of all, for people who don't know, what a PBM is?
Really confusing.
Yes.
It depends on, it's like a lot of things. Are you pro PBM or anti PBM? If you're pro PBM and you think they serve an important function, like the commercials I saw repeatedly in St. Louis, they describe them as the person who makes sure you get the cheapest cost for your pharmaceuticals. They work with the pharmacy. They work with the maker of the drug. They work with the insurance that almost everybody picking up prescriptions has some kind of insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, Blue Cross Blue Shield, etc. They work with all of those entities as the broker. The middleman is kind of a negative term that is sometimes used for them. And they get these things called rebates, depending on what kind of deal they strike with which group, that then they make money off of and can pass that savings on to you and me, the end consumer. That's the very rosy picture. That's the pro-PBM vibe.
There's always a but.
According to the Iowa Pharmacy Association, more than, about 30 pharmacies have closed in Iowa in the last year. And while it is a complicated landscape and there are likely many reasons, they point to the biggest reason as PBMs, these pharmacy benefit managers, not giving them, those small local pharmacies, the base cost of what they have to pay to sell certain drugs. And what is so confusing to us is Brian Tabak, one of our reporters, talked to a pharmacy benefit manager, a company that does this. And the word manager is a little bit misleading. It makes it sound like it's one lady, or one dude managing it all. It's a company. We're a TV station. Right. We're not just Becky Phelps, even though she's very important. So they're big companies that do this, big entities. And he was like, I think Iowa regulating PBMs further, including mine, is great.
That's fascinating.
But he's a small PBM. He's not locked into, like Caremark is part of CVS, and CVS and Caremark, Caremark is the PBM, the middleman, but it's also part of CVS. So there's a money sharing thing. It starts to get really sticky. And we struggle to find any kind of research, any kind of scientific backing that says PBMs are good, PBMs are bad. Here's how you regulate them. Here's what you should do to make it work out. We couldn't find anything definitive. It was so complicated, and it depended on who you were asking. But at the end of the day, Iowa is regulating PBMs more than they did.
Yes. So this now law that Reynolds signed requires PBMs to pay pharmacies what it costs to dispense a drug.
Okay.
It allows the pharmacies to repeal reimbursement rates. And it gives patients the choice to decide which pharmacy they want to pick up their prescriptions from.
That's huge.
Yes, so you can't force them to go to a certain pharmacy.
And you can't force them to do home delivery from your insurance provider that owns a PBM. And so my fear not my fear, a concern that we heard from different entities that were opposed to this bill is, I hope you're happy, now your drugs are going to be more expensive. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know if that is going to be true because, my goodness, the research has been so confusing.
Yeah.
But if you're a small pharmacist, including Eastern Iowa Health Center,
Yeah.
they are delighted. They were really looking for the governor to sign this bill. They were going to open their pharmacy that's embedded within their property in Cedar Rapids and Wellington Heights. They're going to open their new pharmacy no matter what. But they say they're going to be much more sustainable with this bill now becoming law.
Fascinating.
Right?
Yeah. So
That was a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one that Reynolds just signed. We had a lot of noise around that one.
A ton of noise, and it's likely a lot of folks were lobbying her, asking her to either veto it or sign it.
We got a lot of statements right after.
Really?
Yes, a lot of statements came into the newsroom. Just like another one that Reynolds had come across her desk.
Okay.
Reynolds vetoed what's been called the pipeline bill.
No, she did not.
Yes.
Okay, farmers are big energy mad.
Yes, many farmers are very upset. Many state representatives are very upset. We've had State Rep Bobby Kaufman accuse Reynolds of supporting
Fellow
special
Republican.
interests.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of noise around this one.
Did she say why?
She did say why. So this bill would have restricted the use of eminent domain, for carbon capture pipelines, and that's a huge deal because of the Summit Carbon Solutions pipeline that already has a permit to go through Iowa and would have faced a couple more obstacles, including the right to use eminent domain to go on farm owners' land in order to build this pipeline. So now they don't have that obstacle, and they of course are thrilled.
Did she say things like the future of Iowa? You know what I mean?
Yes,
because this is good for ethanol.
It is huge
vetoing this
for ethanol.
Yeah.
They are thrilled. They say it's essential for Iowa's agriculture industry. Reynolds has said, I have a couple quotes from Reynolds here. Quote, "It would have set a troubling precedent that threatens Iowa's energy reliability, economy, and reputation." She also said in her veto letter, "Those who crafted the bill said they don't want to stop CO2 pipelines that rely entirely on voluntary agreements. But that is exactly what the bill does. For that reason alone, I cannot sign it."
So, Republicans, many of them were very vocal in support of the bill in saying eminent domain should never be used for private gain.
They have spent years
getting
any kind of version of a bill, even to the Senate.
Yeah.
This has been a House issue for a very, very long time. And it was very difficult to get any senators to pass a version of this bill. 13 Republican senators joined 14 Democrats to vote for this bill. But 21 Republicans voted against it. Those numbers make it very unlikely for any kind of override of this veto.
So it's been so long since the state legislature has, frankly, been vetoed.
Yes.
They're all Republican, but Republican leadership.
We had a supermajority for a couple of sessions now, I believe.
Yes.
And mostly, it appears as though Governor Reynolds has been in lockstep with all of those representatives and senators.
Leading the agenda, largely, legislatively even.
So this one, I think, one, it took so long to get a bill to her desk.
Yeah.
That they, I think, were very hopeful that it was going to be signed because they spent so long making compromises and on the phrasing. But Reynolds said, no.
So if there were to be a special session, that wouldn't, there's so many rules.
There are so many rules. You need 2/3 from each chamber.
You'll get that in the House, I feel like,
to do a special session at all.
But those numbers you just read would not support one in the Senate.
Senate Majority Leader Jack Whitver said, probably not. Don't get your hopes up.
Yeah, holy moly.
Pat Grassley immediately said that they were going to try at least get a special session.
She's not running for re-election.
No.
But this also isn't her last legislative session as governor. She will have one more before she is replaced by, who knows, a gubernatorial candidate. So do we think this is legacy making?
My wonder is, are they going to try again?
Absolutely they are.
I feel as though they have
Absolutely they are.
Will they work with Reynolds?
Or will they float it? I don't know.
Will they work with Reynolds to make a version of this bill that would pass? Because that seems like they spent so many years facing obstacles from different, legislators to even get this to her desk.
This is going to
Now they have to get it past her.
divide potentially Republican candidates for governor.
Yeah, a lot of Republican state legislators ran for office on this issue. Like, they have,
Really?
Yes, they've been so loud, especially in the House, saying we want to work for farmers. We want to make sure that your land is protected. And there is no shortage of farmers who have been willing to speak very loudly to the media about how they feel about this bill.
Do we have any idea on the scope of, Summit Pipeline comes to your land, comes to your home, comes to your community and asks, I would like to do a voluntary acquisition. I will pay you to dig a big hole and put a pipeline down and babysit it. And I have to check on every once in a while because, pipelines sometimes leak. There's sometimes problems. And I'll pay you X amount of money for this inconvenience and for the access to your land. Do we know what percent of farmers who are given that offer and go, great, I could use the extra funding, I could use the extra income stream, versus, I've never seen it.
I don't know.
But I shouldn't say never.
Numbers.
I want to say Summit Pipeline was emphasizing the vast majority of farmers are saying yes to voluntary, is easement the right word? I don't know if that's the right word.
We're going to have our producer.
Voluntary. Elizabeth's going to try to help us.
Do some research on that one.
Because I think you might also find farmers, as this gets into candidacy land and you're running on it, saying, we want that money. Ag is so unstable.
Yeah.
Ag has been not doing great for the last few years in Iowa. This will open up new markets to us, and it's a secondary income that is largely passive. So in a way, it's like pitting farmer against farmer.
Yeah. It'll be really interesting to see, spiraling up to the next legislative session.
Yeah.
Which avenue, because I can't imagine they're going to let this go. They've been working on it for years.
Oh, it's too eminent domain gets people's blood pumping.
There's no way they're going to just let it go and not introduce some bills at least.
Did these two bills, this veto and this signing, are probably the two not most consequential, because that's too overstating it, but two big deal bills. Yep. Did she do it on the same day?
Yep.
Bless her heart.
Yeah. And it came with a whole list.
Yes, beautiful, Elizabeth.
Okay, this is from Summit Carbon Solutions CEO as of 2023.
Okay,
so it's
pretty recent.
Ish. Currently, more than 72% of the proposed pipeline route affected landowners, and about 90% of the proposed carbon dioxide storage area have signed voluntary easements.
It is easement. So 72% for the pipeline and 90% for the underground storage. And that's not happening here.
And that's not in Iowa, that's across the whole Midwest.
There's 5 states involved.
Wouldn't you love, if this continues in the next session, let's make that our goal to try to figure out what the percent is for compliance in Iowa. Not compliance, but agreeing to the voluntary easement. I just like to have an idea, because I think sometimes in my mind we talk about everything. They're so against it, they hate eminent domain, they're so mad. When in reality, it is a very vocal minority, and not that, we definitely want to give them, obviously, a platform and hear their side, of course, but not to conflate it with every single farmer being asked to have the land.
Yeah, that would be very interesting.
Anyway. Wow,
Moving on.
There's more?
There's more.
Goodness.
I'm going to give you a choice.
Okay.
Would you rather talk about some local crime stories, some investigations we've heard about this week?
Okay.
Or would you rather talk about our third case of measles in Iowa?
Can we just do both and go quickly?
Let's try.
Okay.
What do you want to start with?
Crime.
Okay. All right. We are going over to Waterloo, which is in the northern part of our coverage area here in eastern Iowa. And we have gotten a criminal complaint about a Waterloo police officer who was involved in a crash about a little more than a year ago, in June of 2024. That was a fatal crash.
Oh, no.
So this crash, 34-year-old Keaton Northup is facing charges of homicide by vehicle and operating under the influence.
Oh, no. Okay.
So investigators say that Northup was seen earlier in the day before the crash at bars, having more than 10 drinks at different locations, and then got on I-380 in Blackhawk County with a passenger, 29-year-old Jenna Mills, and was speeding, going over 100 miles an hour at certain points, according to investigators. Lost control of the vehicle, hit a barrier. Mills was killed, unfortunately. North was seriously injured.
Okay. And it took a year to come to these charges?
It took a year to come to these charges.
We don't know.
That is, well, we have a couple of, we did ask.
Okay.
So that was our number one question
Yeah.
in the morning meeting. We're getting a lot of this information. It's Friday as we're recording this. And again, these charges are coming a year after. And we asked the police department, in this year, Northrop has been on administrative leave. And as of this morning, when we talked to the department, Northrop is still with the police department.
And that's paid administrative leave.
Yes.
And that's a taxpayer-funded position, obviously. Wow, that's
Yes.
it. That's something.
So we did get a few ideas as to why it took so long, but they're very vague, and it's very typical of the answers that we do get. You know, this is typical of this kind of investigation. They involved certain task force. You know, it was a very standard answer from the police department. But we have finally gotten those charges in that crash. We reported on that crash a year ago, and at the time got very few details.
Yeah.
So that has just come in.
That's really sad.
It is very sad, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks. That was a real bummer.
You're welcome. Would you like to
Sorry.
do more of a bummer or measles?
Well, we work in an industry where it's just, some days it feels like one bummer after another. Let's keep the bummer going.
All right.
Jeez.
Over to more bummer.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I just saw that headline.
Beth
I already
just
don't
got
like it. I don't
look
like
at
it.
the headline on my notes here. This came in, I believe this came in on Wednesday.
Okay.
Maybe it came in on Thursday. Elizabeth, let me know in a second. Dubuque Police Department let us know that they started an investigation into an employee at Hempstead High School.
Okay. In Dubuque, yeah.
They got a tip from the Iowa Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force in April.
Okay.
And that task force was contacted by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
What? Okay.
Yes, so this has
That's an odd...
gone through a couple channels here, back in April. The police looked into this. They found that the suspect worked at Hempstead High School, and that the case involves computer-generated images of students.
Oh, no. Is this like what happened in... What town was that in? Where the Cascade, where the students were making nudes, AI with classmates,
Allegedly,
classmates. Allegedly, thank you.
Yes.
It was Thursday.
It was Thursday.
Okay.
This came in on Thursday. Now, the school district says, this person has been on leave since the day they found out, and they are complying with the police department, and the district is also meeting with students and families, trying to give them any kind of support as they learn exactly who is involved in this, who is a victim.
So were these images of... Oh my good. Do we know how many students were impacted?
We do not. We know very few details right now because they are still investigating.
Okay, this is the second time we've had allegations of criminal activity of this nature in the last 3 months. And I feel like AI just came into our day-to-day lives a few months. I feel like it's brand new. And it doesn't even seem like we're just scratching the surface.
It feels like it's going on quite the ramp up, yeah.
So just to be clear, it is a crime to take, say, this is so gross, a school photo from a yearbook of a child and having AI generate an image that is lewd. That is a crime. Because I don't have any equivalent for AI. Let's say somebody drew a picture. Right. That is not a crime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is different.
This is a whole new kind of thing.
It is a whole new kind of thing. That's why I'm very old. I'm having a hard time finding that line between of where's the line of the crime. I'm obviously not defending the behavior. It's revolting. Alleged behavior. But this just feels all so new to me. So what is the charge? What are you charged with if someone does something terrible like this?
That's a great question because so far the department hasn't said there are any specific charges.
Okay, because I was going to ask what's the name of the former employee, and we don't name.
They are still investigating. They have said that they will release more information when the investigation is done.
Do we know if the former employee is a man or a woman?
We do not.
So that's why we're using things like they and that person and that employee. Okay.
Yes.
Gosh.
So I believe, if I'm interpreting the press release correctly, that the hope of releasing this information is that other families,
Sure.
other students who may be impacted or believe they are impacted by this can come forward.
We don't even know the role of this former employee.
No, could be any
Bus monitor.
Yeah, anyone, any kind of staff member at Hempstead
Teacher,
High School.
Principal.
Could be anything.
I'm not saying that. Yeah, I know nothing.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
So that also coming through the
That's a
newsroom
bummer.
this week. Let's wrap up with measles.
Okay, I'm fascinated by measles. Tell me everything.
So we've had our third case in the state this week.
That's terrible.
Second in eastern Iowa. And the two in eastern Iowa are interesting.
Okay.
The first one, vaccinated man.
Oh, okay.
We
So
know-
is he okay?
We know very little
okay.
about this vaccinated man.
Got it.
We don't even know what county, what area. We just know eastern Iowa.
Eastern half of the state.
A
Great.
vaccinated man got the measles.
Okay.
Then we got a little more information about the third case of measles, unvaccinated child in Johnson County. And this child was exposed during international travel.
Okay. Okay.
So the Johnson County Health Department gave us a couple pieces of information about where the child had been, because the worry here is that measles is so easily transmitted.
Yeah.
And we talked to a couple of different public health officials about that. Heather Metter with Lynn County says 90% of people who are exposed to the measles virus will get measles.
That's bananas.
Yeah.
That's crazy high.
Yeah, so they are once again asking anyone who's not vaccinated to get vaccinated, and just the importance of knowing if you were at a spot where you could have been exposed.
Absolutely.
Just checking up on that.
Measles is a real public health nightmare because of how quickly it spreads, and it can be very dangerous, especially in children. That's really where it's problematic. Well, Becky, I'm up to speed. I'm ready to tackle the day's news with more information behind me, and I appreciate the work you're doing.
Oh.
Miss a day, miss a lot.
You do
Miss 4
a
days,
lot.
miss everything.
Sending you all into the weekend with just a lot of knowledge there. But those are some of our big stories from the
big
newsroom.
top stories for the week. Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Beth.
For sure.
All right, we'll see you next time.